our final is essentially open in terms of subject and theme, but the requirement is it must be in a series or a suite. You'll note that I do have the, I believe I did put the rubric or the prompt on the Facebook page. Did I last night? Either way, it will be on there. So many of you may have worked in series before, especially in high school and your upper levels. So generally, the best way to describe a series is more than one piece of an artwork that is in a kind of collection. They're following a similar style or some sort of composition or theme or subject. So it requires a kind of commitment. And you'll note that you already are familiar with artists that have worked in series, specifically the Monet haystacks. Every single artist has worked in a series. Every great artist has worked in a series throughout their life. So in order to work, in order to be a successful body of work, you need to think about what kind of subject you are passionate about. And you need to be open to variation within the limits of that subject, if that makes sense. So you want each work to individually be successful, but also as a grouping, coherent and successful as well. So I'm showing you Jim Dine's work. Jim Dine is primarily a painter. However, he has worked in drawing throughout his entire career. And he's only worked in series. I only work in series. And he exhausts the theme and then moves on into another series. So one particular body of work that's great to show drawing students is his tool series. And these are both prints as well as drawings. So he focused exclusively on tools that were available in his studio. And they become very, very iconic. And because he's limited his focus in terms of a subject, that has enabled him to really focus on his aesthetic expression with the medium. So he's taking great risks formally while limiting himself and not maneuvering outward from there. I think it's really important as a student to establish some rules to start, and you need to probably spend some time writing to do that in your sketchbook. Those rules will provide you a structure that you will have to consistently follow within a predetermined period of time. Now, it doesn't have to be a predetermined period of time. It can be until you feel like the idea is exhausted. That's how long I work a series. I don't say I'm going to create 20 and then I'll install it. No. I say I'm going to create a body of work and I will explore that theme or idea aesthetically and conceptually until I feel like I need to move on, right? And usually for me, that's about a year to 3 years, typically. And this, of course, is just a very small collection of drawings on your end. So your rules can be imposed in terms of the format, the scale of the work, the materials, the subject matter, and you want to write down that series of rules to make sure that you stick to them at the beginning. If you don't stick to them, you're working outside of the constraints of the series. Question? What is burned ice? I think it's just a play on words, because if we're looking at Ellen Mueller's body of drawings here, the idea is these are sort of topographical aerial shots of made-up maps. And these made-up maps would essentially be whited out if there were snow on the ground, or much darker in contrast if there weren't. So it's just a sort of play on the dichotomy of the impossibility of something warm and cold at the same time, which could be the Earth. I would highly recommend that you work out these ideas in terms of a word tree. I use my sketchbook oftentimes to write ideas down, and I make these analogies or relationships via sort of just an idea branching out into other correlative words, right? So I might start a series that is focused on gender, which is what I'm doing right now, okay? What are all the things we think about relating to gender? Male, female, masculine, feminine, in between, non-binary, right? That's a real hot topic right now. And then what do we assign to those things? Well, muscles versus softness, right? And that idea tree would grow to such a degree that hopefully it would elicit a lot of ideas in terms of your approach to the body of work. So another artist who has worked exclusively in series is David Hockney, although he's maintained the same style throughout. So here's a body of drawings that he did really throughout a long period of time, I think 10 years, 15 years of portraits that he did in situ with subjects. And this is a little different than the series of work that he did using a type of kind of like a camera obscura, which very much look photographic. So these are very stylistic and sort of his brand of seeing and sort of wonkiness of seeing a subject. And they're all done in colored pencil. And they're fairly sensitive, and they kind of push out the color in a very evocative but also sort of saturated way. So they're not about naturalism. And yes, that is Andy Warhol to the right there. David Hockney is a very, very famous artist and is currently in the art history books, and he's not even dead yet. Here is a body of work that's meant to be seen as a grouping. So they can exist on their own, but really this artist would be remiss and really misstepping if they sold a single one of these, because they work as a whole in terms of the actual objecthood of the whole, but also the transformation of the bird into the silhouette. So this is meant to appear as though it's a sort of successive animation of a bird, abstractly transforming into a human. Here's another series of drawings, or we could call them works on paper. Doesn't really matter. It's arguable, but I don't care to argue it. Francie Hester, where she did a single drawing a day for a period of time. I'm not sure how many she actually did, if she did them for a year, if she did them for 2 years, whatever. And then to see them in person, they very much are a workable small scale, done in full color, and clearly non-objective in their formal arrangement, right? So it's really an exploration of the sort of extended sketch, the extended design sketch. Wangechi Mutu is one of my favorite artists. She's now living in the United States. However, she is an African expat. The series that sort of put her on the mark was a series that she took from 19th century anatomical illustrations. So she tore those pages out of those books and then altered them with drawing and collage, creating these sort of portraits. And yes, they are monstrous. I've seen them in person, and man, it took my breath away, especially in the amount that she did and the sort of just formal success of each individual image. They're very evocative, they're very kind of uncomfortable, and they use a lot of material in them. She uses spray paint, she uses charcoal, she uses watercolor, and she uses collage. Another artist using printmaking as a means to create a body of work. So these are, intrinsically it is related to drawing, obviously, because it's the graphic arts. But these sort of reverse canvases, Alejandro Mendoza. So working in series can not only be a wonderful aesthetic challenge, but an intellectual one as well. It is and should be, kind of considered that this mode of working is the most financially lucrative way to work as an artist. People do not generally want to collect works of art from an artist that doesn't have a voice. So this is a way to explore possible voices that you may adopt or you may not adopt. But this kind of experimentation needs to be happening at this sort of pivot point in your career as a developing artist, so that you can begin to claim your own agency over what it is you want to make, okay? So I'll stop there, and then I'll take your